Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Savva Sahunam. Eso Panchanamukkaro, Savva Pavapanasano, Manglanam cha Savvesim, Padamam Havai Mangalam. With this, we begin our today's session on Jain Gyan Chaupar. But before that, link. Before the session starts, I, as a formality, of course, would like to introduce our today's guest, Ms. Aditi Chaudhary. Although she is a very young scholar, I would like to tell that once the session ends, she would be very successful in carving out a very scholarly image out of her. So this introduction is just a formality. Ms. Aditi Chaudhary completed her master's in ancient Indian history, culture and archaeology from the prestigious Department of Archaeology at Deccan College Postgraduate Research Institute, deemed University, Pune. And she submitted her master's in arts dissertation titled A Study into the Narratives of Jain Gyan Chaupar. She has served as a museum curator at the Bagor Ki Haveli, WZCC in Udaipur. She also interned with the National Museum in New Delhi, where she worked with the Arms and Armors Department and also with INTAC under the Heritage Education and Communication Service Department. This is a brief introduction for Aditi. Also, she has been my classmate at Deccan College, so I'm very much interested and delighted to welcome Aditi to this program of Ancient Jainism. I request Aditi to please carry forward the program and start her presentation.
Thank you, Oshin, for such a nice introduction. But I would like to say that the topic that I'm going to present, which is on Jain Gyan Chaupar, Gyan Chaupar and the gaming tradition in India is large, is very rich. And I am a small fish compared to the people who are present right now in the session. So forgive me if I say something wrong. So thank you. I'll start now. Okay, so is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this thesis is titled A Study into the Narratives of Jain Gyan Chaupar. We look through what is the ethos of Indian gaming tradition first. We look into what is Gyan Chaupar, and then we'll go into what is Jain Gyan Chaupar. Right? Why does it say narratives? Because these games were highly narrative centric. So that is why we are talking of the narratives of Jain Gyan Chaupar. So the gaming tradition in India. So we have a lot of games that have their origin in India and they have traveled west. You have chess. Chess was originally called Chaturang. And it has traveled west. It became Shatranj, and then it became chess in Europe and has come back to us. So it's not a very good journey if you see from the perspective of what it represents. Similarly, what we have done is we have adopted the same games which originated in India from the West, but more shallow versions of it. So when you talk of snakes and ladders, it's a game that originated in India. It's called Gyan Chaupar. And what we have adopted from the West, a version of our own game, is devoid of all narratives. So the philosophy aspect of it is completely blank. And we have this idea of a 10 by 10 board in which you would have a metric system which represents the industrialization of the Western culture, which we have adopted, giving up our own philosophical boards that were so rich in narrative and traditions. So Gyan Chaupar, Gyan literally means knowledge. Chaupar refers to the layout of the board. So Gyan Chaupar would represent some philosophy along with the game that you see. The snakes and the ladders, sometimes you can also see that there are two scorpios below. So they could change it from even ropes. So ladders could be represented by ropes as well. But the thing is that apart from the paths or the snakes that you see, that is your forward movement and your backward movement. Apart from that, you also have these cells in which you can see content. And this content represented the philosophy of the boards. Based on the philosophies it represented, there can be different types of boards. So you have the Vaishnav Gyan Chaupar. This particularly is the earliest Vaishnav Gyan Chaupar board. Vaishnav Gyan Chaupar would represent the Vaishnav philosophy, and they would be typically 72 celled boards, so an 8x9 board that you can see over here. And this is from Lucknow, right? This is again a Vaishnav Gyan Chaupar board. It belongs to southern Rajasthan or western part of Rajasthan, which is Marwar, and it belongs to the early 19th century. All the boards that we are going to see, they were either made on paper or they were made on cloth. And that is why you would not find boards prior to 17th or 18th century. 17th century is also like quite early, because it's very difficult to preserve it, given the quality of paper and given the cloth and the materials that have been used to make it. So most of them they start appearing to us from 18th century onwards, but it is not as if you have this tradition only from 18th century. This tradition goes back thousands of years, but what you have over here, what we find is mostly 18th century boards. They begin from 18th century. So this particular board is again from southern Rajasthan, and it's a Vaishnav board again, so 72 cell board, and you can see the various gods on the top. This is a very interesting board. It has not been studied much. This is from Pitt Rivers Museums in Oxford, and this particular board that you see over here is interesting because it will tell you the content of the cells in two scripts. So you have Devanagari, and then you have the Nastaliq script here, which has been used. So this is a very interesting board. It either belongs to Punjab or Rajasthan, again a 19th century board, and it's no wonder that it's in one of the museums in London. They have the best of Indian artifacts. So this is a whole-scale rendition of Gyan Chaupar. This is based on the Advait philosophy, and it's a very interesting board, and I'm not the correct person to talk on it because we have Aman sir over here who can talk in detail on it. But this particular board represents it's a 9x8 board. So we as human beings have 8 compartments and 9 channels. You would have the 4 ashrams represented in this board, and you have the physical and the metaphysical world represented on this board. So very deeply rooted into philosophy. And if you start engaging with this board, you would realize that the kind of knowledge it gives you and the kind of perspective it gives you is amazing. This is a Pahari type board. Again, it's a Vaishnav board, but Pahari boards would be very, very detailed. So this is 342 squared board, and each board has a content, and it's very detailed and it's highly narrative centric. So it's not as if these cells have been connected to each other through the help of snakes and ladders haphazardly. There's a reason for connecting two cells, and you have a meaning, you have a narrative behind it. And as one engages with these boards, they would learn about these narratives. They would learn about why is it connected to this particular cell, why one particular cell is placed on the upper side of the board. So the position of these cells is also very crucial. And these were not placed haphazardly, which tells you that a lot of thought went into making these boards. A lot of philosophy went into it. People would sit and contemplate where to put, what to put. And I have experience of making one of the game boards. So I know that it's not easy to decide a position of the cell. So it shows that it's a very long tradition that you see over here. Apart from the content and the position, they would also take a lot of efforts to paint the images around the board. So these were very detailed and beautiful boards. This particular board that you see over here, it's a Sufi board. So again, the script is Nastaliq, and you have domed structures on the top, which is your final destination. But again, Indian games were not race-based games, so they were never meant to, help reach a person a particular place. They were more about journey. They were more about experience, and what one learns through, moving throughout the board. So you must have seen that even today, if you play snakes and ladders with someone, you would realize that, after finishing the game, like after reaching the 100th cell, people would say, let's play another turn, right? Let's start it again, because people enjoy playing it, not finishing it. And this is what our gaming tradition represented: experience through play. This is the same board. This board is from Ashmolean Museum, again, Oxford, and they have tried to translate it into English. So this is what they have done. But you can see that this is a very detailed description of things. And what they have done over here is just one word caption for each cell. So the translations that are available are not very good for any of the boards that you will access, because when you translate it from any of the Indo-European languages, they lose its meaning. So the translations are not good. And this one that you see is where our snakes and ladders, which is the Gyan Chaupar, or you also call it Mokshpattam. It has went west. It has gone west, and you can see that in England they have tried to give their own rendition to the game, where you don't find any captions for the cells. You have some pictures, but you can't see any captions. So this has been devoid of its narrative, for which it was known, Gyan Chaupar. So you completely remove all the narratives from it, and what comes to us is a metric snakes and ladders, representing the industrialization of the Western world, not the philosophical tradition of Indian subcontinent. Okay. Then Gyan Chaupar is also, so it's not necessary you would see snakes and ladders. This is a variation of Gyan Chaupar, which is called Gulok Dham. It's played in West Bengal, and it looks like a triangular pyramid kind of a structure. Again, you would have pictorial depictions of the things, and you have rules that if you land on one cell, then you have to move to another cell depending on the narrative. So again, it's a very narrative centric game, and this is a cold kill version of Gulok Dham. So you can see that if you land on one particular cell, you have to pass to another cell on a throw of a number on the dice. So on the 14th cell, you have to, you can see that you can only leave this cell if you throw a 2 on the dice. So this is because it's related to narratives. There is a narrative associated with Yamlok, that you're supposed to stay there for until you throw a 2 on the dice. Let's look at Gyan Chaupar boards. So there were particularly 7 boards that I had accessed from various museums across India while pursuing my dissertation. So I have used chronology as the basis of my study, where I've seen that how Jain Gyan Chaupar boards have developed from the 18th century till 20th century chronologically. Another thing is that because it was there was lockdown at that point of time, so I could only access like 7 of these boards. If I would have had more time then and accessibility, I would have accessed other boards from various museums in India. So what we will be seeing today are these 7 particular boards and the Jain philosophy that has been presented in these boards. Now, Jain Gyan Chaupar boards can be of 2 types. One type is the Purish board, and the other one is Viman type board. We'll see examples of both these boards, but the basic structure remains the same for both of them. So you have 84 cells. So you have a 9 by 9 board, which is 81. So this is the 9x9 board. And the cells 56 and 66 are extensions to the existing basic board. And then you have 5 top cells, which are the 5 upper realms in Jain philosophy. And then you have a crescent-like thing, which is called Siddhashila, right? So that's on the top. Okay. This is a drawing of Lok Purish. What does Lok Purish represent? So in Jain philosophy, you have this cosmic man, which represents the entire universe. So so the middle of it, the circle that you see, that's the Madhya Lok, or the middle world in which we live. And below it, you have the 7 hells. And on top of it, you have different types of heavens. So this is a very common theme in Jain philosophy of a cosmic man. And you will see the same kind of boards. The same has been represented in the Gyan Chaupar boards as well. This is an exception. This is a 106-celled Jain Gyan Chaupar board. It's from Museum of Indology, Jaipur. This particular board is an exception. And this was not part of study because or the rest of them that have been compared and that have been studied are all 81 plus 3, that is 84-celled boards. So this particular board has not been studied, but it's an exception which you see, which is 106-celled Jain Gyan Chaupar board. So we'll be starting chronologically. This is the earliest dated Jain Gyan Chaupar board. It's painted by Vijay Krishan, and it's from Museum of Indology, Jaipur. Belongs to 1735 CE. Right? Now, is there a question somebody wants to ask? Okay, so this particular board that you see over here, you see that the snakes are very thick. They are cobra-like snakes. So you start from cell 1, which is at the bottom, and you move your way up through the boards, through the cells, and you have 84 cells, and then you have the upper realm, which is represented in the shape of a crescent. So cell 56 and cell 66 have been represented with the help of temples, temple-like structures. And below there's an inscription which tells you who is the painter of the board and what is the date in which it was, on which it was painted. Now, as we move through all the 7 boards, because they have been arranged chronologically, you will find that there are several changes or that are happening through the boards. So I'll just move the slides quickly through so that you can see, and then I'll get back to this and we'll discuss the Jain philosophy. So this is the first board that we have used. This is the Lok Purish type of board that I was talking about, where you see the cosmic man, and all the 84 cells are shown as the body of the cosmic man, and you can see his arms. So in arms, you have armlets in which you can see cell 56 and cell 66, right? It's a very beautiful board from Gujarat. The next board is, this board is at the National Museum, Delhi. You would see that initial boards have a lot of description. So the captions are very detailed for the initial boards. Again, you have an inscription below which tells you of the nature of the game. And through the design of the board, you can see that the border has a very beautiful floral pattern. This particular pattern represents the Pietra Dora work, which you can see in Mughal architecture, which is particularly in Red Fort and at the Taj Mahal. Pietra Dora is an inlay work, which is usually associated with Mughal architecture. Because this board belongs to Rajasthan again, so you had a lot of Mughal architectural influence on the board. This particular board, this is the 4th board that we'll be seeing, and this is from Rajasthan. Apparently, I was not able to read the contents of this particular board because of the lockdown, and I could not access this board in person. So I don't have a translation for this particular board, also because from the images we could not read it, since it's very clustered and not very immaculate. So, but the exception for this board is that this has more number of snakes than the rest of the board. This is the only exception that you have in this board. Rest of all the boards will have 9 snakes and 6 ladders. This is on paper. This is not on cloth. Okay. The 5th board that we have over here, this particular board is from the coastal region of Gujarat. The artist is unknown, and it belongs to mid-19th century. Now, this board has also been quoted by Andrew Topsfield, who has worked on Gyan, Chaupar, and he would tell you that, why you would say that this is from the coastal region is because instead of snakes, you have elongated fishes as painted on the board that will take you backwards. So you don't have snakes in this board, you would have elongated fishes. Another thing that you can see over here above cell 56 and 65 that have been changed into temple-like structures. Behind them, you can also see palm trees that will tell you that probably this, and most probably this belonged to the coastal region of Gujarat. This is from Mewar. This is a very immaculate, clean board that you will see that has prescribed very precise captions. You don't have detailed captions for this because by the end of it, by the 20th century, you would find that you don't have a lot of details on the boards. And this is the last board that we have used in this particular study. This is again from Rajasthan or Gujarat, and this belongs to 19th or 20th century. The artist is not known for this particular board, and this is currently at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. So these are the 7 boards that we will be looking through. Now, let me first come to the philosophy that has been explained. So the Jain philosophy that these boards exhibit is very basic Jain philosophy. They have not gone into very detailed philosophy because the makers of the boards knew that the common people or the laity would be engaging with the boards. So they have tried to keep the philosophy as simple as they could have. And what you have over here, the basic philosophy that has been exhibited is the journey of the soul through this world and through the 84 lakh births it takes. So this doctrine of 84 yonis is central to Jain philosophy, and you see that exhibited in the boards, particularly through the 84 cells that you have. That will talk of the journey of the soul. So the soul is moving through 84 different birth conditions, and at the same time it also has to pass through several doors. So you have 9 doors through which it passes through. For example, you have the Narak Dwar, and you would have the upper realm door through which it would pass through. So on this particular board, you would see that the 9 realms have been they have been described in the form of row titles on the right hand side. Just below and above the temple-like structure, you can see that the 9 dwars, so Narak Dwar, and different dwars have been named on the right hand side. Another thing is that Jains believe in the idea of animism. So you have different types of creatures. You would have Prithvi Kai, Up Kai. Prithvi Kai is earth-bodied beings. You have Up Kai, that is water-bodied beings. Tejo Kai, which is fire-bodied beings. Vayu Kai, that is air-bodied beings. And you have Vanaspati Kai. So Vanaspati referred to plant-bodied beings. So you have different. The idea of animism has been also represented through the cells. The first cell that you have is called Nigod. Nigod is a type of condition that is where you don't have any senses, and then you would see that as you progress through the various cells of the boards, you would see that you will find terms like uh, uh, dvi-indri, creatures that will have two senses, tri-indri, chaur-indri. So like that you proceed. You also have the idea of non-violence, which is central to Jain philosophy, again explained on the board. So you have a snake which bites you if you commit hinsa, especially jeev hatya. And if you do that, then you come down to in some cases you come down to cell 9, or you come down to cell 10. So this particular snake is at the center of the board. You come down to again 8 or 9. In some boards you will come down to 8th cell. Sometimes you come down to the 9th cell. So there are a bit of variations, but in totality your philosophy remains the same. Then the Lok Purush board, or the concept of universe, is also exhibited on the board. So you have different realms explained on the boards. For example, if I take this particular board, this is a Lok Purush type of board. And this tells you that you have lower realms, you have middle realms, and you have upper realms. So the upper top rows of the board will tell you different types of Gravik. Gravik are the upper realms, or if I say in layman's term, then it is basically different types of heavens explained in Jain philosophy. So the upper two rows consist of that. And the middle, the board that you see is the middle realm, in which you have the jeev or the soul transitioning through various birth conditions. Now there's an exception. This particular board, with the help of pictures, you can see that it's telling you the idea of different realms. So on the left hand side below, you can see 7 hells, right? Different types of hells that are represented on the left hand side of the board below. And as you move above, you can see on top right, you have a circle where you can see a meditating figure. On the right hand side of the board also, you can see there are saints who are meditating. So you can see the idea of the middle world, the upper realm and the lower realm explained very beautifully on the boards. This particular board, which is from Mewar, Rajasthan, this will tell you that this board, before the first cell, it has the name of the 7 hells written over here at the very lowermost row. So this is how Jain philosophy has been explained. You also have the concept of leshyas explained on the board. So leshyas are state of mind. So this concept is in Jainism. You have 6 states of mind. You can have Krishna Leshya, which is a blue state of mind, which is not considered very good. You can have a white state of mind, which is considered good. So you have 6 states of mind, again explained on these boards. So if you land, so 3 are good and 3 are bad. If you land on any of these bad leshyas, you have the mouth of the snake, and you go down to the first or the second rows. And mostly you land on cells like Lobh, Moh, Maya, or through the leshyas, because your state of mind decides, whether you are greedy, or you are someone who is very attached to this material world, or you believe in the idea, you are too deeply involved into the Maya or illusion, right? So this is very beautifully explained on the boards that you see over here. If we come to the design and the play of the boards, there are some exceptions. So you can see that here, just below the face of the Lok Purush, you can see that the cell has been left empty. Now, there can be various reasons for it, whether because you have a lot of connections, 2 ladders are connecting to the third one over here. So maybe the artist wanted to leave it empty, or he missed it, probably. So there are mistakes also that you can see on the board. On the very same board, you can see that the artist has used white paint to correct his mistake. So on the right hand side of the cell, can you see my cursor if I point it out? Is my cursor visible, Oshin?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So here in these two particular snakes, you will see that the artist has used white paint because probably he extended it to these two cells, and then he realized that no, the snakes should not end over here. So then he corrects it. Same with this particular snake. This was extended to this one. It would not have made sense because you have another snake in this cell. So he then corrects it. Again, there's another correction over here as well, where the snake was supposed to land on second cell, but he extended it to the first one, and therefore he uses white paint to correct it. So there are mistakes also on these boards, which you can find. Right. Okay. Then if we move on to the possible play, there is in all the boards you will find that there's one particular ladder that so this ladder connects to this cell, and then it connects to this, and then it goes on the top. Now, if the ladder was supposed to go from here to the top, then the painters or the ones who have made the game would not have shown breaks or connections, isn't it? So there are certain rules. These games were played not very simply as we perceive the snakes and ladders was played. Or in this board also you can see that there's a connection. The ladder ends over here, and then there's another ladder, and then it goes on the top. You can find it on almost all the boards. This one also over here, from here, then it goes on the top. Same for this one as well. And then you have a connection over here, and then it goes. And here they have used ropes instead of ladders. So the rope, you have a circle over here, so you're supposed to stop, and this rope will connect you over here, and then you're supposed to proceed upwards. So this actually corresponds to particular rule in the play of the game. So you had a dice. Now the primary sources for knowing the rules of the games are very less. So we don't know if any board has rules laid down, but there are some secondary sources. There's a manuscript that has been found written in Gujarati, and it corresponds to a person called Jethabai. And this belongs to 1877, 1888. This is the dating that has been done. Now, as per this manuscript, you have various rules that you can execute on the board. So when you start the game, you are stuck on the first cell, right? If you wish to proceed from cell 1 to cell 2, you're supposed to throw 1 on the dice. If you throw any other number, then you cannot start. This is also the rule that you use in playing like snakes and ladders today. Some people say that you have to throw 1 to start. Some people say you have to throw a 6 to start. So this you can see over here as well. Then the dice that was used was not the 6-sided die. You would use a 4-sided one. And for the 4-sided dice, you have various combinations. So it's not necessary that it will have only 1, 2, 3, 4. It can also have 1, 3, 4, 6. It can have 1, 2, 5, 6. It can have different numbers on it. Now, there's a board in Antwerp, Belgium. And on the board, it says that for playing Jain, Gyan, Chaupar, the 4-sided die that was used was with combination 1, 2, 5, and 6. So probably this was the most common combination that was used for playing this game. Also, if you land up on a cell that has a ladder, so if you land up on a cell that has a ladder, you can't simply climb up through the ladder. You have to throw, if you land on this cell, you have to throw 1 to ascend through the ladder, or you move, normally you follow your path through all the cells. So this game does not end or finish very easily, because you have to make your journey through the 84 birth situations that you have. So you are supposed to throw one. In one of the Jain boards, it was also found out there was an inscription written where if you land up on a cell that has a ladder, instead of throwing one, you're supposed to answer a question. If you answer the question correctly, then you can proceed or you can ascend through the ladder, otherwise you don't. So it's not very uncommon that this rule was there in these boards, because these are highly narrative-centric games. All the cells are connected to each other through some or the other narratives pertaining to Jain philosophy. So therefore, this rule does not sound very peculiar as it might sound to the present-day players of Snakes and Ladders. Then you also have certain markings on the boards. If you can see over here, you have some small squares. It's more visible on this particular one. You have a spine-like thing at the center. It's very clearly visible on this one, where you have like squares here. And it's also here. So you have squares over here. You also have some footprints on some other cells also. You can see some square over here, here, here. So these squares would actually tell you that you can move to the upper cell if you throw one. So you don't have to follow the entire row. If you are on these cells, if you throw one, you move up. This, in the case of like scattered footprints, can be a different scenario, but the centermost footprints that you find, which forms like a spine, this is the centermost column, actually represents a concept called gun sthan in Jainism. Gun sthan basically means that your soul goes through various purifications as you proceed towards the upper realms. So if you are at one of the cell that is a gun sthan, and if you throw one at one of these cells, so you proceed to the next purification level automatically. So you don't have to go through the entire row. So if I'm here and if I throw one, I will proceed to this particular one. I don't have to go through the rest of the cell. So the idea of purification is at the centermost column of these boards. This particular board, the inscription here at the bottom will tell you the journey of the soul. So this inscription says that a jeev or a soul who travels through all these 84 yonis, that is within the boundary, is a man. The one who travels beyond it is a saint. So if you go beyond it, you are a saint. This was about it. I think we have discussed most of the things. Now it brings me to the idea of analysis. So what have I analyzed through all the boards that you see chronologically? The first thing that you can analyze is that the descriptions of the cells become more precise. So you have a lot, the cells initially are very descriptive. This is a very descriptive board. This also has a lot of descriptions. But as you move to the more recent boards, you will find that the captions have become only 1 or 2 words. They're not that descriptive. Now, there can be 3 reasons or 3 ways of looking at it. One way of looking at it is that there was a decline in philosophy, that people don't want to engage with more detailed philosophy. There's a decline in thought. And they would want simpler versions of the more complicated things. The second is that instead of a decline, you can also assess that maybe people became so familiar with the descriptions of the cells that they didn't need a lot of description to tell them what it represented. So you have a more precise and concise captions for the cells. The third is from the artist's perspective. This is just a conjecture looking at the boards, because I've had the experience of getting a few boards painted on cloth, which were Vaishnav type boards. But whenever I would give an artist to paint the board, he would tell me that, it looks easy, but it's very detailed and it's very difficult to draw, because you can't make mistakes, one. And even if you make mistakes, then you have to correct it like you can see it on the board, which is very much visible. The second thing is that these were painted on cotton cloths, most of them. So the cotton absorbs colors, especially the watercolors that were used to paint. It absorbs it really fast. It's not like paper. So you can't actually go back. If you make an error, or if you try to overwrite it, it's visible and it does not look nice then. So maybe the artists had this problem, and that is why they would make more simpler versions of it. But this is just a conjecture looking at the boards and the idea that I had while engaging with these artists. And the last part that you see, this is a present day contemporary Jain Gyan Chaupar board. So the Jain community is the only one that has not given up its tradition of engaging into games. There are institutes where they would teach young children Jain philosophy, and to teach them Jain philosophy, they would use these kinds of boards. Of course, they are not as well thought out as their predecessors are, in terms of their structure, in terms of the philosophy that they're representing. But still, it's used as a means to engage young children into Jain philosophy, which is, not so prominent for the rest of the other type of boards, like Vaishnav type boards or Pahadi type boards or Sufi type boards. You don't see that. This particular image, I got it from Miss Neprabha, and she's the one who teaches young children Jain philosophy during the summer breaks. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you. I'm open for questions. If anybody has any questions, they can ask.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for your enlightening session on Gyan Chaupar. I'm very delighted that you had this session of the Gyan Chaupar relating to change, time, place, context, and how the amalgamation of the Jain philosophy, of basic Jain philosophy, gets amalgamated into the present Gyan Chaupar also, like you showed the contemporary versions also. So I'm very thankful to you for your time, and now we are open for the session. I think Saurabh will carry.
Hello, am I audible?
Carry on forward.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for this wonderful talk. And this is quite an interesting topic and has raised a lot of curiosity among our audience members. So we have a lot of questions. The first one is, how widespread was the practice of playing Gyan Chaupar among Jains, and were the monks and nuns also involved in this tradition of playing the game?
Okay, so when I got in touch with one of the monks, he told me that they would not play it, but they can explain the philosophy to me, and they know that this tradition exists, but they would themselves not play the game. Chakra system is not so clearly seen in the Jain versions. You can see it in the Vaishnav boards, or the ones that exhibit Advait philosophy.
Okay.
The second question says, okay. Any other objects like cordis or other objects were used for playing? Yes, some of the boards you can find that they would recommend using cordis, but again, for the boards that I studied, they are the ones that would use dice for playing. But cordis were also used for playing, and you have a different counting system for cordis, of course, on depending on the position they land, whether it's the upper face or the town face of the. And is only Vikram Samvat used or any other calendar system? So all the boards that I came across would use the Vikram Samvat system. I didn't find any other calendar being used for the boards that I came across. Okay.
Okay, so another question that we have is, have ancient petroglyphic games continued in the form of today's board games? And if so, then what really has changed and what has continued?
Just a minute. I can't see this question.
Okay, no, actually this question has come to me.
Okay.
I
Okay.
read to you if you want. I'll read it again. Is that
Yes.
fine?
Yes. Yes.
Have ancient petroglyphic games continued in the form of today's board games? And if so, then what really has changed and what has continued?
Okay, so petroglyphs is basically etched on stone, right? So, of course, you have continuation of these games. These are different games. You would find Nav Kankadi, you would find tigers and goats, Bagh Bakri. These are all etched on floors of various temples. There's an extensive work done on these etched games on stone, but you can't etch a game like Jain, Gyan, Chaupar, right? Because it has a lot of descriptions. You can't etch it on floor. You can etch strategy games like I told you, Nine Men's Morris or Nav Kankadi, but you can't etch these games on board. Okay, what's the there are some other there's some other questions. Okay. Apart
Okay,
from
so-
paper and cloth, yes.
Yeah, please continue. Should I
Apart
read
from
it for
paper
you?
and cloth, no. Any other material used for the game like wood or stone, like we have for other board games? Again, the same thing. You have paper and cloth used for particularly the Gyan Chaupar. You don't. If it was made in wood, it has not survived because you don't find any examples of the ones etched in wood. There is one board that belongs to Mysore. That's a variation of Gyan Chaupar that's there in wood. But otherwise, the petroglyphs or the stone type games in caves and forts, those are different games that you find. Okay. What are the animals and birds depicted on the boards? Any connection with the local ecosystem established using the boards? Yes. So as I showed you, the coastal region board. So of course that will tell you the local ecological system. You would have fishes. You would have the coastal creatures represented. You would have the palm trees. Apart from that, you can see that the boards from Rajasthan. So there was this one particular board from Udaipur that I showed you. You would have dome-like structures and chhatris that you find in the architecture of Udaipur. Similarly, the Pietra Dora work I showed you from the board from the National Museum, again, it's from Rajasthan, shows you the architectural influence, the Mughal architectural influence, because it looks very similar to Pietra Dora work. Date for the Mysore board, I'll send you this board, Manish sir, I'll send you this board to you, which I have in one of the articles, because this particular board was not, this is not a Jain board, so it was not part of this study, but I have this reference of the Mysore board that I can send it to you. Yes.
So Aditi, all the examples that you have showed, they are mostly from Western India, from Rajasthan and Gujarat.
Yes.
So do we find examples from Southern India as well of Jain, Gyan, Chaupars?
No, you find some boards from Central India, but most of them belong to Western India, Rajasthan, Gujarat. That's it. You don't find Jain Chaupar boards from any of the other regions of the country.
Okay. So maybe this tradition was more practiced in the Western and Central parts of
Yes,
India.
because you have the Jain populations in these regions, right? Jains are mostly concentrated even today in Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Gujarat. You don't find them in rest of India. You don't find that. For rest of India, you find other type of boats. Like I told you, Gulok Dham is, you find it in the east. If you go in the hills, that is the Pahadi type boats, you would have their different folklores represented into, and the Pahadi types boards are huge. I mean, they are highly narrative centric in the sense that you would have 4 boards integrated into one big board, and then you would have these cells that would run into 200, 300, and they're highly narrative centric. If you land on one cell, you have to discuss the narrative of that cell. So that is why you call it Gyan Chaupar, right?
Okay. Thank you so much for that answer. And another question that we have is, what is the difference between the aim of playing Jain Gyan Chaupar and Vaishnava Gyan Chaupar, or any other Gyan Chaupar for that matter?
Okay, so the aim is, which philosophy do you want to engage with, right? If you want to engage with the Jain philosophy, you play that game. If you want to engage with Advait or Vaishnava philosophy, you engage with that game. The Sufi board will represent the Sufi philosophy. So again, depends on the people who are making it and their target audience, right? So it depends on you, which type of board do you want to engage yourself with.
Okay, so but the end goal remains moksha in all these types?
See, this is the idea of moksha and attaining the final destination, attaining the upper realm and the salvation. This particular idea was given to us by the Western people who were interpreting the games. For us Indians who had made these games, the final goal was never reaching the end, because you see that they have put in so much of effort at the play of the game. They're not putting any efforts to make you win the game. If you see very clearly, although they have made ladders, they'll not allow you to climb those ladders up so easily. They want you to go through all the realms. The idea of the game is that you travel through the 84 birth conditions. So the aim is never that you achieve the end. What you experience is the journey. What you take back is the philosophy, the Gyan that it gives you. And that is why it's never aimed at reaching the end. It's more about journey. And this is the concept of reaching the final goal. Who reaches the fastest is all the Western ideas that have been put into our minds by the Westerners, and we blindly follow it. We don't see that that these were our own games are being presented to us in a different framework and with a different end goal. So you should always look. So it's very important that whenever you play a board game, you should look what it is trying to represent. Monopoly is a game that will teach you capitalism. We give our young children this game to play. What it teaches them is, this is your property, this is my property, the rent comes from this to me, the rent goes to this, from this goes to you. If I land on your property, I have to give you money. So again, monopoly is based in capitalism, right? And any of the games you pick that are of Indian origin will never teach you that you have to reach the end goal, you have to reach the end goal fastest. So most probably the fastest player is not the one who takes back a lot of experience in Indian games. If you finish the game too fast, you're not the most rewarded person in reality.
Okay,
I think so the meeting is going to end in 3 minutes.
Yes. Okay, but we can rejoin the meeting. We have a few more questions, or just one more question, and then we can rejoin. This is, why is the peacock depicted on most of the game boards that you showed, and we don't do that in our general snake and ladders game nowadays? If you can elaborate on that. Okay,
so I tried finding why peacock is so important to the Jain philosophy, but I could not find any references. I mean, there are people who can help me out with this. But you see that in these both, they're trying to represent, like the Purish board I showed you, in which you have very prominent peacocks. They'll try to tell you the different life forms. So in Purish board, you have different life forms being showed, right? You have birds, you have plants, you have different animals also being depicted on it, right? So the idea is that it will also show you in motive form the birth conditions that you go through, where you're two-sensed being, you are three-sensed being, or four-sensed being, and then you finally have five senses as an evolved creature. Right?
Okay, so thank you so much for answering all the questions and for this wonderful talk, of course. I would now like to invite Soumya to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Saurabh. First of all, I would like to thank you, Aditi, for such an insightful session on Gyan Chaupar, because most of us, like especially if I can speak about myself, I was completely unaware of this this elaborate knowledge that comes behind a small game, which we take very casually. And if moving on forward, I particularly would like to thank certain scholars which joined us for this session. Dr. Renuka Porwal, Dr. Virat Shah, Dr. Shrikant Ganvir, Dr. Doshi, and Dr. Abhijit Dandekar. Thanks a lot for joining this session and sharing your knowledge and questions.